Hello, KSO musicians. I am so sorry for being gone for so long. As long as I've been doing this, I do learn new stuff every once in a while, and what I learned this time during the Sault Ste. Marie Opera Festival, Sault Theater, there that I do every year, the thing that I learned this year is that just because it's a second violin part does not mean it's not possibly the hardest part in the entire opera. And I found that out especially with Marriage of Figaro, which second violins basically start playing at the beginning, and almost don't stop playing 16th notes for like 3 hours. So I had a lot of practicing that I had to do, so I did not put this video together until now. Luckily, the Mahler, it is fairly difficult, but if you know a couple of things, it can make it a little bit easier. Number one, listen to it. You don't have to necessarily listen to the whole thing, although I would. It's a great symphony, and we're going to be spending all next semester on it, of course, the spring semester. So listening as much to it as possible is good. You'll kind of get some ideas of what Mahler really wants in his music a lot of the times, because for Mahler, the notes are just kind of, yeah, hopefully you can get them because there's lots of other expressions in there. If you notice, if you look at the part, lots of German in there, and that's all sort of expressive stuff that he's sort of telling you to do. And I could have probably looked up a lot of it. Some of it I know, some of it I don't, so I'll share with you what I know. And the rest, it's probably good to look it up. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's first take a look at the first excerpt. This one is in, I believe, the second movement? Second movement, yeah, the Andante con moto. And it's on the, I think like the second page, actually, which isn't too bad. At the tempo 1 spot where it says mit sordina, I wouldn't necessarily put on the mute since you are doing it for an audition. If you want to, you can kind of get that sound. If you want to, it's not a terrible idea, but it's not as important, of course, for an audition. The hard part about this is a couple hard things about this one. Number one, in this one and the next one, which you'll notice is Mahler plays with the timing a lot, so we'll talk about that part of it. But first, let's just talk about the notes of this thing. It is in A flat major, and that can be particularly challenging when we have to kind of scoop around into lots of different positions, which is what Mahler is always asking us to do. One trick that I like to do, and this can help if you've got, I think it's $15 or something like that. This app in particular, the Tonal Energy app, if you click on it, it's one of my favorite apps. First of all, it always smiles at you, which is kind of helpful when you're in a practice room for like 3 hours. And it has this nice pitch wheel here. The thing that I like about this pitch wheel, it's a little loud, hold on. Turn down a tiny bit. Is you can actually get a full triad on there if you want to, and I would recommend that in particular. Now, you can practice your A-flat major scales. You can even do that with those drones that I just showed you there. But even just going through this part with those drones is helpful because it's really just everything feels flat, and for us, that always feels wrong as musicians because, well, we're just, especially with violin, we're so used to playing in normal sharp keys. Mahler is never going to give us just easy keys because, of course, he's not. So sometimes practicing with that's not a bad idea. I'll give you a little bit of an example for that here at the beginning. That's my cat, by the way. She's not happy that I'm not spending all of my attention on her. She can deal with it for a second, though. All right, so I'd put that on, and then I would just play through, just mostly listening for intonation. So on and so forth. I don't do the whole thing that way because it'll probably be annoying. But by doing that, you're just sort of finding exactly where those notes are so that it can kind of hit your ear immediately and you can kind of figure it out. If you notice, I'm being pretty scoopy in the shifts and I'm kind of ignoring the bowing when I'm just working on the intonation. That way you're only thinking about one thing at a time. Then once you've kind of done that a little bit, you can put on a metronome, maybe go slow to fast. You can still keep that arpeggio on if you want to, and of course practice it up. Lots of different articulations, of course, in this thing. If you notice, he'll do some slurs, he'll do some staccato, and then he'll do some slurred staccato. So do make sure that you bring that out. I'll give a little bit of an example here at the beginning. Oh, There's a lot to talk about in Mahler. There's also quite a bit of portamento, which if you don't know what portamento is, that's when we slide from one pitch to the next, and that's actually a lot of times what he's asking for. In fact, there's a couple places where he literally just asks for a glissando, which means you have to, so he wants all those in between tones. We'll talk about that. If you look at the top part, we kind of have like the top part, and then of course you get the Energisch Bewegt. I'm not very good at my German, so I'm sorry if you know some German. That's a little bit faster, of course, and it's over on the G string and just has a different feel in general. So I would practice this almost like 2 excerpts and then kind of show them together. Let's see, that first one. There's some articulations and some things, so I'll sort of play it slow. I haven't practiced it all the way up yet. That's going to be my task this week. So on and so for a second, let's talk about those glissandos there. So he does ask for a glissando, which means you can't play it on 2 different strings because that will, and I promise you, Dr. Nevis will be looking for that. It's not a bad idea to practice that placement. Also, don't look away from it at the camera for no reason at all. You might miss a note. But just practicing those glissandi is not a terrible idea. So in other words, this is like 3rd line of the page, kind of close to the end of the line. Now, since it's a fast glissando, there's multiple ways you could do it. If you wanted like a real slow glissando, it's sometimes worth it to go all the way up with the first finger. Since it's fast, you can get away with kind of throwing that 4th finger in there to kind of make up the distance there. So it's like suddenly faster or something like that. That's that sound that he's looking for, whoa, is really what we're going for there. So you don't feel the need to like zoom up and then try to shift around on like 1 finger, right? But making sure that you do get those nice glissando sounds. That first one has to be on the D string. Whatever the notes are. Then I jump over on the A string super fast. So on and so forth. And there are a couple of places, like for instance, right there, after the little da 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 da. I would do a 4th finger extension, so you don't have to let that go, and so there's enough shifting around. In other words, just do an extension there. Then you get to the bottom of the page, so that's that one. Listen for all the interesting dynamic things that he has. He's got lots of swells. Lots of it, though, of course, is in pianissimo, so of course, keeping the bow kind of close to the fingerboard, kind of playing a little bit in the middle, not getting too heavy down at the tip. Don't get too excited like I like to do and play something too loud. Lots of vibrato where you can put it, of course. And that glissando at the end, make sure you got that one. It's just on the D string. Have that nice soupy sound in there. Mahler loves that. Anyway, at number 6, or the Energisch Bewegt, it says on the G string, and he does want it on the G string. Luckily, that's the same note. It's a D sharp, which is the same as an E flat. So it should be relatively easy to find with your ear. Even though it doesn't say it, you could put some portamento in there. He likes that pretty much anywhere where he has those soupy, super little melody things. Not really a whole lot in this one to kind of go over. Just make sure you get your notes. What I'll say is the only thing that's really awkward is it's a lot of accidentals and it's a lot of sharps in the key. So figuring out what note you're on at any given point in time is, of course, important. I will play it down at, I watch those C double sharps especially. But I'm going to play it down at almost at the end of the page where it starts on the D sharp pianissimo there. I'll assume you can get the rest of that, and I'm running out of time a little bit. So I'm going to play from there. It's like all chromatic. So really know your enharmonic spellings. Remember that the two natural half steps are between B and C and E and F. So if you see an E sharp, that's actually just an F. But if you do see like a C flat or whatever, then that would be like a B, right? So that's why a lot of times you'll get double sharps and double flats in that territory, so that they basically just mimic natural notes essentially. If you have particular trouble with that, do let me know and I can help you out with that. But we'll move on for now. If you look at the next one, this one's slightly harder, mostly in just that it's really up high and you gotta d a bunch. And of course, there's a couple of time changes. At the very beginning, it's about like at like a quarter note equals 140. So it feels pretty fast. But then as you get down to the pesante, et was tiger. Don't know how to say that. I do know pesante though. That means slower, right? So in other words, we're going to back it off a little bit there, which makes it slightly easier. For the most part, this one's okay. There's some goofy things about it, so we'll kind of go through it just a little bit. Number one, notice at the beginning, fortissimo. Play those loud. It's got even the little carrots on top, so you can kind of give a little bit of a stab to the bow. Just supposed to be big and broad, right? Like stabbing or something like that. We got those quick little. Make sure they're fast. And then we have all these really weird ninths, especially minor ninths, I think, are super weird. And it does say to gliss. I don't know how much he's going to want that eventually, so I'll say this. Choose what you want to do with that one. If you want to try to glissando up there, I'm probably not going to be able to get that as accurate as I would like, so I might just play it as like a ninth or a tenth. It's pretty fast anyway, and there's a lot going on. We'll find out how much he wants those glissando, and we'll work on it if we have to. But we'll do that when we go to play it. For now, whichever one you want to do, if you want to practice those glissandi. These ones I'm looking at is like the third down, a little bit after 18, the B natural to the C natural. It's a minor ninth, and it's a weird glissando. So I'll leave it up to you. You can, if you want to, just do a fourth finger extension. It also happens later where you go from the C sharps. Then you start to get bigger. And I would try to stretch that if you can. A fun exercise. And something that'll drive everybody in your house crazy. Finally sounds like it's, I don't know, like a good interval in there, right? But that way, especially when you have to jump up there, it's a lot easier to get all the way up to that F natural. Speaking of which, I would try to shift to that one fast. Now you gotta hear this interval there, and I think it's a little challenging. But luckily it's just a 4, so if you need to, you put your 1 where that B flat is, and then you just have to hear that up an octave. Which, you know, easier said than done. Now it sounds suddenly major, by the way. Kind of. And that's supposed to be a big slow down there, so make it nice and big. Use a giant bow. You'll have to kind of pretend like he's slowing it down on us and then bringing us in. Or, of course, right at 20. I'm hoping you got at least some of that tonality, of course, as I was playing it. A good way to practice if you need to is to just take out the little hockets, the little uneven thing. Maybe even just do doubles just to get the intonation of those up there and the quick position work and all that kind of stuff. Of course, play it slow. Play it fast, use a metronome, probably the best way to do it. And for now, I'm gonna leave it there, but if you do have any questions, my plan is sometime this week, I'm gonna start uploading my own videos so that you guys can see them. Like I said, Mozart took too much time last week, but that's my whole plan this week. So hopefully they'll be up sometime between, probably not today, but hopefully sometime between tomorrow and Friday, I'll have all of them up. So you guys can kind of listen to them and see what it is. And of course, you can always get a hold of me through my email, jbwall@mtu.edu is probably the best one to get to reach me at. And if you have any questions, let me know. If not, happy practicing and good luck on your audition.